Hey there, this is Felix from Goldamer Vintage Watches. Today's video is all about double-signed watches. Double-signed is a celebration of watches whose dials features both the name of the manufacturer and that of the particular retailer at which they were offered for sale. Our today's Art Deco Rolex is double-signed by the Italian retailer Berga. But what is the story behind these double signings? Why are these watches notable? Why it was started back in the days? Where does it start? And why are they still so popular among collectors today that they're going through the roof at auctions? Today we will answer all these questions. So just imagine it would be the beginning of the 20th century and you have a watch company in Germany. You sell your timepieces all over the country and you're very successful. Your business is growing and you are thinking about selling your product internationally. But how do you want to achieve that? Remember that there was no phone, no Instagram, no Facebook, and not even the internet. So ask yourself, what would be the smartest and easiest way to solve this problem? Indeed, retailers. Back then, the most famous watch brands had no shops in every corner of the globe and no online presence as we all know it from today. They just relied heavily on their global network of retailers. And retailers were more influential than you might think. As there were no representation possibilities for brands like Rolex or Patek Philippe in these territories, the retailers assumed real power and even controlling what watches were sold in their city or even the country. With this smart move, they could reach easily markets which have been otherwise very difficult to penetrate from their manufacturers in Switzerland. These kinds of partnerships are rarely seen in any other sector of the luxury industry. What began as a practical business for watch brands to reach a wider consumer audience has given birth to a highly collectible watch segment. And not only the watch companies benefit from this cooperation, also the retailers become respected and gain recognition from their clients because of the double signing. People started to trust and recognize the name of their local store. Usually, no watch company was interested in branding at the beginning of the 20th century, but this partnership between watchmaker and retailer started a quiet revolution in branding and marketing. For example, Bayer played a big role in the perception for Rolex and Patek Philippe in the German-speaking world. Bayer was founded in 1760, known as the oldest continually operating watch shop in Switzerland and possibly the world. But as you can imagine, there were many more. For example, Hermès and Cartier for French and the North American continent, Gondolo and Labriot for Brazil, Gobi for Italy, Asprey for the United Kingdom, Serpico y Laino for Venezuela, and so on, and so on, and so on. The respect for Patek Philippe in the United States, for example, is partly built on the efforts of Tiffany & Co. Over the last century, they promote the brand as if they were their own company. From exotic locations like Caracas to the less sunny Liverpool, retailers acted all over the world as a gateway for watch brands to their local markets. So as you have just found out, the signature automatically tells you which market a watch was sold in. With a signature, the model and reference of a timepiece, a knowledgeable collector can collect a lot of interesting information. It might sound simple, stamping a dealer's brand name onto the dial. But the process itself isn't that easy. But how Swiss watch companies like Patek Philippe and Rolex added these retailer names onto their dials? Is it happened in the manufacture or in the production? Or is it done by the retailers itself? Most of the people who deal with this topic assume that these watches were already stamped during the production in Switzerland. But this is wrong in the most cases. It's assumed that the watches either arrived at the retailer disassembled or that they dismantled themselves, allowing them to add their signature. When double-signed watches began to appear in the 1930s, the additional inscription was often applied using the decalque technique. This technique is a form of printing and allows for the transfer of a design engraved on a metal plate, which is known as a cliché, onto a dial with the help of a silicone or gelatine stamp. Ink is placed into the recessed areas of the cliché where the retailer's name would have been engraved and reproduced it with impressive precision onto the dial. The Rolex office in New York, for example, was known to have multiple of these cliches. And they used these cliches for their retailers all around the country, such as Cartier and Tiffany. So let's talk about nowadays. Why are still these watches are so highly sought after by many collectors? Just a few years ago, the market for double-stamped watches wasn't even close to as big as it is today. For collectors, double-signed dials just adds an element of rarity to an already rare vintage piece, and yeah, it brings such a difference. Things have changed, and this trend's even spreading on modern pieces. As an example, Tiffany & Co. bought a new 5711 1A Nautilus bearing the Tiffany & Co. stamp in the summer of 2018. The normal retail price for this piece in the UK should shade under £25,000. And just 4 months later, it was sold for £100,000 on an auction in Geneva. This piece not having had any time to accumulate anything in the way of provenience, no movie star affiliation, no convoluted backstory. What commanded that huge price was simply the Tiffany & Co. stamp on that example style. So that's all from today. We think this is a very exciting topic. Yeah, we hope you learned something new that you haven't heard before. So have a great day and hope to see you in our next video.